Hey everyone, welcome back to Mind Your Conversions by fibrai. Today we are talking to someone who is a master of words for SaaS and tech companies, such that she has her bio in LinkedIn calling herself Word Engineer, which I love the title. Would love to hear more from her. So let me welcome Bidani. She is head of strategy and copy at cape.agency. So one thing, Eden superpower that I know about her is that she loves helping SaaS and IT companies to help them with their copy and ensure full potential for their websites to convert better. She has been doing CRO for a very long time, and she blends a very ignored part of CRO, which is copy, with the other tech stuff of CRO that's normally people work on. She's worked with a lot of companies like Cyberproof, Supermetrics, and have done compelling copies for these websites to drive significant conversions. Eden has a very unique background, and because of that, she has a very, very different perspective when it comes to CRO and copy. She comes from anthropology and sociology, so I think that also gives her a edge when writing really, really crafty copies. Eden, thanks a lot for being a podcast guest with me. I would love to jump in and talk to you. Talk to me a little bit around this word engineer. I am really excited about to hear what does that mean.
Hi, thanks, Adrian. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast today. It's great to speak with you. Yeah, that's the word engineer. It came up recently as a result of just doing some introspective thinking, because a lot of the time, so especially with LLMs out and everyone using them, I'm getting really excited about how quickly ChatGPT or Grok or Claude or whatever you're using can give you work. The important thing to remember is that the way that they give you words is it's a probability calculator. So it
Yeah.
estimates the probability of how all of these different words that you've given it to prompt it with, and what the most likely outcome that you would be expecting based on this combination of words that you've fed it. So it doesn't do any actual thinking, it doesn't do any actual strategy or any actual planning, even if it says it does, because that's just not the way LLMs are actually built.
Yeah.
So, and then the difference is when a human comes in and they say, well, there's a reason why I choose to use these specific words, and that reason is because it's bringing in brand awareness, or I'm making a deliberate decision to use a word because I want to push brand awareness, or because I want to drive conversions, or I want to do both. So there's a real science to it and an art as well. So it's not just a matter of predicting what's the most likely outcome. And what AI can give you is, or what LLM can give you, is it can convert. I'm not saying that it can't, but it's very different to the way a human approaches the same problem. We don't just try to put as many words on a page because, and hopefully some of them will convert. We try to get it right the first time. At least we try to. So that was the idea with word engineer. I think it speaks to both the strategy side and then the actual execution side of messaging and conversion copywriting, rather than just saying I just do words.
Awesome. And like we do writing, and there's like something that I wanted to talk to you about is whenever I talk to marketers right now, all of them are using ChatGPT, or they're using like or some kind of LLM, and then you see most copies using the words like revolutionary and like out of the world and box, right? Like, and the sentence framing is also very similar. I did this, nevertheless I did that. Like very, very similar structuring. Do you see LLM improve in this direction, or do you think more marketers will become I have to become word engineer to do really, really good in their field? Like, what's your take on this side?
That's it's a really interesting question. And I read an article, now I can't remember the author, and not AI. I read an article the other day by someone with a very strong opinion on this. The content that it produces is quite, like, it's not bad. I can't say that it's not objectively good or bad, but you can feel that it lacks something. So what we sacrifice sometimes in terms of speed, we miss in terms of intent or human
Yeah.
connection. There is something missing. Like, you can tell when, there are some instances where you don't care, where you're just looking for the right answer and it doesn't matter. Like, so if you're using Google right now and using the AI generated responses, you just need a quick response. It's not like
Yeah.
you don't want to necessarily go down the rabbit hole, but when you want to go down the rabbit hole, where you're not going to use ChatGPT or Perplexity to do that, and you're going to actually start digging into the Google search results yourself, or you'll search in Google and then you'll search on Reddit and then you'll search here and then you'll search someone else and you'll still do that bit of fact finding yourself. I think there's a lot of danger in relying in not using your own faculties and your own mental power to reason and think and make decisions. As humans, I know we're always looking for shortcuts. We're always looking to conserve energy and to preserve, cognitive load. We want to save energy as naturally all humans want to do. There is a real danger to that, and that becoming lazy or becoming reliant on the machines or on the things that we've built to actually serve us.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. So the people I think that will continue to work on their craft and work on what they're really good at and see AI as a partner rather than leaning on it to do everything for them, they're going to get much greater results from it in the long term. The problem that I see, and it's not just with marketers in general, I think it's with with the leaning on AI in general, is because when you stop doing that, when you don't know how to do the task that you're trying to do with AI, so it gives you a result and you think, well, I wanted to do A and it's given me what looks like A, so it did
Yeah.
the thing. But in reality, you have no way of judging the output and whether the output is good or not, like objectively good or not. You don't have any thing out of your own perspective to judge it against. And you don't have any other benchmarks or any other factors or ways of evaluating that output. So it's difficult to fact check for you because you don't know you don't know what's wrong and what's right. And then you don't have a benchmark to say, well, is it actually good? Is it interesting? Is it useful? Or is it just regurgitating stuff that was already out there on the internet? So that's where
Yeah.
the danger really falls in, because then we think we're getting work done, but sometimes we're just kind of treading like a hamster, kind of spinning a wheel around and around, and you haven't actually gone anywhere. You've done what looks like work, but you actually haven't got anywhere.
Got it.
So it's a great thinking partner. It's great for challenging you. It's great for helping you pick up things where you might have missed, internal biases, skipping over things like that. But then again, you need to have enough knowledge and experience and practice and actually doing the thing or doing the task that you want it to do in order to be able to evaluate that it's doing it correctly. Otherwise, you can crash and burn really, really quickly. I know the Silicon Valley, it's like move fast and break things. If you move too fast, you can break a lot of things,
Yeah.
very expensive things, very quickly. So I think it's, they're very useful, and it's without a doubt, they're very useful. And there are so many great use cases for AI and for LLMs in general. But I think you just need to evaluate what are you using it for, and then what do you expect to get out of it. If you expect it to totally do the thing for you, there's still at least 15 to 20% hallucination rate, and no one knows if they're actually ever going to get rid of that, because that's how the LLMs are built. Anyway, we're going off on a real tangent here. It's very far away from experimentation, but in general, it depends on how you're looking at it, what you're going to use it for. The people that are going to get ahead the most with AI are the ones that are using it to help them go through their own processes faster, and that have experience and prior knowledge to doing the things, so they know how to evaluate the output, and get even better work faster, rather than just producing more volume of work or doing things that you don't know how to do with it. Because that's where the danger comes in, and that's where it starts to get messy.
No, makes sense, Eden. Like I think your parameter of, do you want to do 70% of the work or do you want to do it like the entire work? I think that tracks a lot, right? Like for me, when I use AI in my day-to-day work, my goal is not to get it to do my 100% of the work. Just get it done to 70% so that I can then pick it up and decide what my output needs to look like rather than what AI output is, right? And I completely agree. Like one thing at Fiber AI we pitch to our customers is 70-20-10. And we normally say, hey, 70% of the work will be done by AI, 20% will be done by Fiber AI team, and 10% with brand, because we do want that 30% human input
Mm.
in the entire system. Because if you don't, there's a high chance, one hallucination that you rightly said. Second, there's a chance of AI missing the entire brand tone. Right? You talked about something there, right? Like there's something missing. And I feel that missing element is one, what makes us human. And then second is also like how you have created the brand tone of the tonality of the brand, how you created, like you can train as much as you want. It's never perfect. It's not there always, right? Like, and I don't know, like what's your definition of that missing? That's something I have figured out. Like it's always not there what I wanted to.
Exactly to your point. So the writer of this article, and she teaches writing at a university in the United States. And it's not
Hmm.
just because she teaches writing course that she wrote about AI. She also wrote very positive things about it, but she also said, again, there are things. There's that human element, is that ability to know when to break patterns. So AI does not know when to break patterns. It only knows what it's been trained on. It's been trained on conventions. As writers and as humans, we rely a lot on conventions like cliches, like just normal cliches and things that pop up day to day in our language, in our writing, on social media and everything, just tropes and memes and all those things that come up repeatedly time and time again. Like it's not X, it's Y. It's been used so often by ordinary human writers that of course the AI has picked it up and now just it puts it in everywhere because it
Yeah.
thinks that that's, well, it doesn't think, but it assumes that that's what we're expecting to see out of it because that's what we've used in the past. So, but you're able, like you said, you're able to pick up when it says it's not X, it's Y. So, well, you could have written this in a different way. So you bringing in that knowledge, you've been able to understand that this is a point where you can break a convention, you can break a pattern. So we do rely on formulas and frameworks as writers and, as strategists and marketers ourselves, but to know when to break it, to when to do the opposite of what the data says you should be doing. That's the human element that's missing. It's the surprise, it's the change in structure, it's a sudden change, it's a going off on a tangent and then coming back to the main idea because it was a
Yeah.
really interesting tangent. It's all of these things that get missed in the middle. It's like going from 5 words per sentence, or 3 sentences a paragraph to have something, a 10-sentence paragraph, and then back again. It doesn't know how to do these things. It
Yeah.
can't randomize. It follows those formulas. And so that's the beauty kind of humans, is that, we do know when to do that and when it makes sense to do so. And so I think we're actually starting to value human writing as well much more because we have that ability to say, well, this is how I could write it, but I'm going to write it like this because it's much more interesting to read this way. Or the idea becomes more compelling when it's expressed in a different way. So it's
Yeah.
not, again, you can do a lot of quick work with AI, but then it's like you need to know when to break those patterns to get maximum result.
Makes sense. And I think we started with word engineer, got tangent into AI, which is like in itself a very fascinating subject. Coming back to your own expertise, I know like when I go and pitch to companies, most companies push back and say, hey, copy doesn't make that much impact. I want to do large things in CRO. I want to like move elements and like hide elements and change the image and etc. How important is copy according to you when it comes to CRO, when it comes to experimentation?
So for me, so of course I'm biased in that respect, but copywriting I think is an integral part. It's not because it comes down to the words, it's because it comes down to the ideas and what you are testing. So when it's the difference between getting a copywriter involved in the execution phase, like when you're getting ready to run the A/B test, you say, okay, we have a UX screen that we've set up, and now we need to fit something to fit in these number of character lines that we have. It needs to be different from what we had in the first round. Or we're testing, different colors, different kind of button, different placements of button. Now we just need something else to fill in the gaps. It doesn't work like that. What is the idea? What is the action that you're trying to encourage? What is the result that you are looking to see? Why do you imagine that you're going to see that kind of result? That's when having a copywriter involved in that ideation phase before you've actually crafted the experiment itself, like crafted physically the assets for the experiment, is so critical because they're making sure that what you're doing is actually going in the right direction. And so copywriters are not, and I've said this before in the past, it's like copywriters are not hired because of how they write this, because of how they think. And it's
Hmm.
because they're bringing in that perspective. Okay, so you're changing the design, you're changing where the CTA button is on the page. Okay, you're going to need a line of micro copy that tells people where that button is, or they're likely to miss it, or you're going to need to do something else to the copy to ensure that you're still getting the result that you want as a basis of this test. So it doesn't become it becomes quite complex. I'll give you an example. I was working once a while back with a friend, John Ostrowski, and he was working as a Positive John, as you might know of him, very big in the experimentation community as well. And we were working on some screens for an app. The app had almost like a paywall screen, so you could put in a question and it would give you one answer, and then the rest of the answers would be blocked. And it would come up and it would say, you need to download the app to get more answers, but it was written in such a way, and it's like, download the app now, and then it had 3 bullet points like talking about all the benefits of the app, and then sign up. And the problem was this sign up screen, it was annoying people to bits. They had so much negative user feedback about it. People were so annoyed. It's like when you go to read a New York Times article or Wall Street Journal, and you read 3 sentences and the paywall comes up and it blocks the rest of the page. You just want to read the thing. So it was really friction that was really preventing the users from doing what they wanted to do. But it was a necessary friction because they needed to drive sign up. They need to drive downloads of the app. So what we did, so I said, well, so the goal is to get people to sign up, but this paywall is really annoying them, and you're not seeing an increase in downloads of the app because of it. So I said, well, how about we just make it seem, so instead of not without changing anything else, just the copy, what can we do that's going to improve that user experience and make it feel like this is a logical next step rather than this is extra effort that they have to go through? And so I said, can we just reduce it to like one line, and let's say, unlock more answers in the app, 100% free, download now. Like,
Yeah.
that was it. And so instead of saying, okay, instead of having this block that feels like it's preventing you from doing what you want to do, show how they just need to take one small action and they can continue on with the task that they were doing. They saw downloading doubled when they adopted the new approach. Downloads doubled, and they had 0 negative user feedback. So it was just, so that copy alone, we didn't change the paywall screen, we didn't change anything else. It was just the copy alone. We reduced the amount of copy that we had there, and we just made it like we didn't give any further, but we didn't have to sell the app. We just had to sell them on why this is the taking logical next step. So that's what I mean when getting a copywriter involved in that stage. So maybe the copywriter might not have said, don't use it. Might have said, don't use a paywall, because people are really going to hate that. They're going to be so frustrated because they're trying to complete a task and here you are bothering them with friction. But even with that, they will say, well, here's a different way. It wasn't changing the copy of the 3 bullets. It was getting rid of the bullets altogether and just placing it with 1 to 2 lines. So that's what I mean when I say getting a copywriter involved in the ideation stage. Like it's really critical, not just when it comes to execution, because you're able to then find really creative ways of trying to help, of trying to encourage conversions, and getting the results that you want. So if it's really, really impactful A/B testing, not just, well, we're going to test this because we know that we expect to get some sort of a lift because now we could see the CTA button, but it's like, well, there are so many other things that you can do. Another one, I'm sorry, I'm going to keep talking, about screen loading time or page loading time. Everyone says you need to bring it down. You need to bring it down. You bring it down, otherwise people get frustrated and bounce away. You know what? But how many people have actually tried putting a line of microcopy saying, hey, it just takes a second for this page to load. Hang tight. We'll be right with you. You know how many people would actually wait for another 5 to 10 seconds for the page to load and not bounce, simply because you acknowledge that they're waiting and you said, hey, page just takes a second to load. Hang on, you'll see it in a moment. Like how impactful would that be? And you wouldn't have to invest anything in changing page loading time. You just have to put in a line of microcopy that says that. That's what I mean when I say there are so many things. You don't actually have to get to the point of investing so much in reducing page loading time. You can put in a line of microcopy and you bypass that altogether.
Yeah. No, this is very, very interesting. Even I think Uber does it really well, right? Like all the time I'm waiting to get in cab and they'll put in like such micro copy, they'll keep reading and then I will not leave out of the cab. I have
Yeah.
now become used to it so that I get out, but I agree, like this is very, very important. Even with your earlier example, right? Like I do understand when you make the flow seem like a guide or a journey, it helps people to go versus like, oh yeah, you have to download the app to do anything. Like just the the way you are saying, the message you are doing, I think that makes copywriting very, very important. And for me, like, putting copywriting while you are thinking tracks, right? Like, it's very important that you get somebody day zero in the journey before you break the entire structure of the page, before you change anything. Like, copywriting is something that's low hanging, that you can do with less involvement of tech. You can do it yourself, you can test it out, run A/B tests. So for me, there's a lot that could be done here, and why I feel personally that anybody starting with experimentation should start with copy first, because you can see a very, very quick jump or very, very quick changes in your growth, in your conversion angle.
Yeah, without having to invest in deep UX changes or customer journey changes, or like before you do that, do a copy test. It's one of the easiest things to run. I mean, anyway, to code in a copy change is very easy versus doing anything else significant to change the entire layout of a website, for example. So it's a very easy test that can be done, and the payoff can be huge.
Makes sense. And Eden, talk to me a little bit about why you ended up in, like, I know experimentation is a wide field and you started somewhere. How did you end up in experimentation, and why copy? Is it, like, I know your background has been anthropology and like sociology. Is it all that coming together and that's the reason you end up? Like, what's the story behind that?
Yeah, absolutely. So there was a bit of a jump there. I was taking anthropology and sociology in uni, and I absolutely loved it. And the fact that the whole idea of anthropology is that you're able to see the world from someone else's perspective, right? So instead of making broad assumptions about a group of people, or even people within a group, that they all think the same, or they all share the same beliefs, or they all act and think the same, is just, it's so dehumanizing. And so when you
Hmm.
do that and you make those assumptions, and then people try to sell to those people or market to those people based on those very assumptions, um, it always comes across as very flat, and it always comes across as very impersonal, or it feels very direct response. It feels salesy. It feels pushy. It feels very that ick factor that people get about sales and marketing altogether. And in that same sense, user journeys and experimentation. So people will feel when they're in a really pushy A/B test, they're like, I don't want to be here, or like, this is too much. It gives you a negative feeling. But having anthropology, it's even more so than psychology, because psychology, again, it teaches you about what triggers go on in people's mind. What's happening in the brain? Why do people think a certain way? And the anthropology is teaching sort of how people think in a certain way. Like, what are they going through in their day to day? What is their existing belief system? What is their understanding of the world? What is their frame of reference? So it's not just the psychological triggers or the brain reactions that are happening within that frame of reference. It's like, so what are those bigger things that are happening in their lives that they're aware of? And how can you make sure that it's about trying to, so in a shorter sense, it's trying to show them how your service or your product fits into their life, rather than saying, well, your life is missing something. Here, you need to buy this, or you're feeling bad, or you're missing out on something, and I've got the answer for what you need. So it's really trying to show them that if this is okay, we understand the context, we understand you, we understand what you're going through. Here's how this is going to make that part of your day better. This is how it's going to help support your existing way of life and make you feel better and help you achieve what you want to achieve as a human. So I think it's a very different perspective. And when we're in experimentation and we're looking at such large numbers, and we're doing user testing, and we're we fail to see the people behind the numbers, behind the clicks. So we have people who are clicking through and say, okay, well, we've got this X and X scroll depth, or we've got this many rage clicks on this button, but we don't really look beyond the numbers. We don't see, so why might people be doing this? And we tend to think about the wrong reasons, the wrong things that are motivating them or might be confusing them. So it's just trying to take a wider perspective and look back, and try to see people behind them and get to know them a little bit better in order to create much more impactful experiments. So rather than just trying to increase the volume of experiments that we're running, it's like running more impactful experiments, trying to get it right the first time and then continue testing. So I'm not trying to just do more for the sake of doing more, but doing more with greater impact.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think this is very important. Like as marketers, I've been a marketer for almost a decade now. As a marketer, also a lot of times we just end up putting people in cohorts, and you're like, oh, this is one cohort, this second cohort, this third cohort, and then we actually forget who that person is and what that persona is and what they might be thinking, versus we start thinking all of them clubbed together in one go. And like I always talk to my team and I say, hey, forget about a cohort, focus on one consumer, focus on one customer, see how they will think. And I think that understanding and then getting into that point of view that, hey, this is the person, that's the reason they're doing it, is very important. And I think your background just gives you a significant edge in that direction, because a lot of marketers come from either data or move from SEO or move from other places, and then over time it becomes cohorts and it becomes like groups, etc., rather than a person or like a individual or a company that we are going after. So yeah, so I do agree. I understand what why it makes sense and why you end up here.
Yeah, I think the other thing is it also makes you question those best practices, right? So it makes you think, well, wait, so because someone ran a so some ex Amazon ran a test and they found that this works, and everyone starts doing what Amazon does. Okay, we understand that that's the way it often happens. It happens in marketing campaigns too. Someone says something, everyone else puts a campaign out about it, the same thing. And it's like, so, but it makes you having that understanding of anthropology, it really makes you question those best practices and say, well, wait, of what we're doing, it might be serving our conversion needs, but is it really what's good for the customer? And so if it's serving our conversion needs first and we're not putting the customer's needs first, so are we actually delivering a poorer user experience because we're putting our goals first? So what if we reversed and we tried to make the customer experience better, and that increases conversions in the long term? Simplest example, every time you get to a homepage for an e-commerce website, you're going to 2 seconds of landing on the homepage, you've got a pop-up, get 15% off, get a free gift. So you know what? I just came to learn about your product. Why are you trying to sell me? Like, I can't even read the headline on your homepage, and I don't even know what it is that you're trying to sell me, but you're trying to sell it really hard. Or the idea of pushing subscriptions before someone has purchased the first time. I haven't even tried the product. Why would I buy it on a recurring subscription if I haven't even tried it once? Like it's you should be out like, so, okay, so what are some things that we could, because it always makes you feel like, why do you keep putting the default as the subscription, or why do you do that? Like, why push this? Wouldn't it make more sense if you were on a product page, and if you've been on the product page or you've visited it 5 times in the last 7 days, if suddenly then you get a pop-up saying, hey, we've noticed you've been here a couple of times, would you like 10% off to give it a try? Like that makes a lot more sense. They say, oh, okay, well, I'm interested in getting this. I'm not sure about the price. 10% off might be enough to move someone to make that purchase. So, or when the second time someone is purchasing something, or a couple of months, a couple of weeks after they purchase the product for the first time, they get an email. We noticed you started using it. You might be close to finishing it. How are you enjoying the product? Did you know if you sign up to get it once a month for the next 3 months, you'll get an extra discount. So if the person is liking it and using it, that makes sense, rather than trying to force them a like making the subscription the default when they haven't had a chance to try the product yet. So, like, again, it makes you question these best practices and about how we can actually help people on their journey to becoming customers, rather than trying to catch everyone
Yeah.
all at the same time.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's also very important to understand the intent of the person, why they have been on your website, what's the reason, rather than selling. Like for me, the most annoying thing is the 2-second pop-ups, right? I haven't done anything on your website. Why am I getting a pop-up? Even for a newsletter, right? Like I don't want a newsletter. I am here to explore first. And like this is one thing, Eden, we solve at Fiverr AI. Like we normally tell our brands, hey, don't put on a pop-up day zero. Like at least if they're coming second time on the website, once they have spent time on your website, they're coming second time. Yeah, do it. Maybe like not even second time, maybe do it on the third time, but don't do it just then as soon as they enter. Seen so many SaaS website and so many e-commerce websites just like push pop up to collect a newsletter, email, or like just selling, hey, sign up now, get 10% off or something like that. I am not yet convinced even on the product, right? So agree on this. Like that's something at Fiverr we have been also trying to solve with personalization, automation. So yeah, so I agree with you a lot. Cool. So Eden, I know like we are close to last few things, but I want to ask two questions. One, what's the future of CRO do you look at, and what one mistake you've seen each or most of your companies make, most of your customers make, and then I want to ask a personal question, but like let's start here first.
Absolutely. So great question. The future of CRO. That's a really interesting question. I'm seeing it becoming more so. CRO works best when it's embedded in C-suite, when it's sitting under the chief strategy officer or the chief business officer, and it's not, because currently where it is, it feels like it's sitting kind of between marketing and product and R&D and strategy, and it's like kind of, but not really. So, and it could deserve its own department, but I think that department then should be called business strategy, because it connects with product, it connects with, the IT team and development, and it connects with business strategy, it connects with finance, it connects with all of these things. So I think the biggest problem for CRO is always trying to be find or experimentation is where it fits in organization. If you're going to tie it to someone in C-suite, it should be under the chief customer officer or chief business officer or chief strategy officer, because those are people that are focused on doing things like improving customer experiences and looking out for long-term brand growth, not just the CMO, but the long-term brand awareness and customer growth, but it's also related to revenue. And they see CRO as a strategic investment because it's always helping us incrementally get better at doing what we already do, which is helping to inform the strategy, help reassess the strategy when things are needed. And so that's which is such an important driver of companies. So if the company is smaller, so it's probably going to sit with the CEO, the growth mindset, not just doing what we always should be doing. But the CRO team is basically, it's like a business validation tool, right? The business validation department. So they're really, really critical, I think, for business moving forward. So unless it gets its own strategy department, unless it gets a strategy department like that of its own, and I think it risks being swallowed up, I think, just by marketing alone, or it's not a good fit for marketing, because then it reduces the value of CRO to just like testing variations, which is not what the value of CRO actually is. It really is about business continuation.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think, or it could potentially get swallowed up by product, but then again, that product, you need to also have product that it needs to be in touch with customers. So you need to make sure between product and customers, it needs to be right there in the center. So I think it really does need to move up. It needs to move up in terms of the corporate ladder. So it needs to be getting up into those, up into VPs and up into the C-suite. There should be something in C-suite where someone is saying, yeah, we need to. Experimentation is this part of it's helping business continuation, long-term business strategy, also short-term business strategy. It pays off in both areas. That's where I see it
Cool.
happening.
Cool, awesome. Hey, this is interesting. I think I personally agree. Like this is where CRO needs to be, and unfortunately, it's sitting, like I call it, like nobody owns CRO right now in organizations. It's
Right.
half with somebody, one third with somebody, one third with somebody else, and then it just falls. Like if we don't have an owner, if we don't have somebody who is responsible for it, it just falls through the cracks. And then somebody wakes up someday and say, "Hey, we have to do CRO," and
Yeah.
then it starts again, and then it falls through the crack again. Awesome. No,
But you
this
know
is
what?
this is interesting.
What could also be good if you could align CRO with revenue or finance, if you could get them connecting, you're showing again, you can show, because a good CFO, a good CRO knows that even sometimes sacrifices in short-term conversions lead to longer-term results, like not just in the immediate quarter, but in the quarters it's the compounding interest. It's those long-term investments, right? From a strategy perspective, even if it becomes more associated with the CFO, CRO, that could even be super beneficial. And that makes sense because it's definitely a business investment. And everyone working in experimentation knows that it is a business investment.
Yep. Unfortunately, most folks think it as a cost center rather than a revenue center. But CRO, like at least conversion optimization, is always a revenue center, right? Like because it's a long-term revenue center, you will end up seeing results over time. It's not just cost. It's cost day zero when you start with it, but as you continue to do it, like it's always a revenue center, right? But cool, awesome. Hey, thanks, Eden. Thanks again for this. Before we end the podcast, I always ask an interesting question with my guests. It's not related to your background. It's not always related to something that's in CRO. Okay, so my question to you is, with all this advancement in AI and like you talk about Silicon Valley and what people are doing, what is the craziest future you look at? Like, do you think Matrix is possible? But like, what's your definition of future with AI? Like, what's the craziest thing that you think will happen with AI?
So wait, you're assuming we're not already living in the Matrix? I think that's
Maybe we are, but like in
yeah.
our Matrix, that future.
In the Yeah, the craziest future with AI. I think probably the scariest one, or the craziest one, but it actually seems to be the most probable, is that one where it's looking at, George Orwell's 1984 and the idea of Big Brother, and it's like you can't think for yourself anymore because you've relied on other things to do thinking for you, and so your own cognitive abilities have become diminished as a result. So you can't people struggle to think for themselves, and they can't think for themselves anymore due to censorship and other things because of the bias. And these machines aren't, they're not perfect. They're also made by humans. They have biases and guardrails and everything built in that we don't even know about, or they don't have guardrails where they should have guardrails. So it's that idea that you're no longer able to think for yourself, and even if you could, you can't express it. So I think that's the kind of when people again, that's the dark scary future, which is what a lot of people seem to be leaning towards on LinkedIn, because that's the future that's the people raising investments for these AI companies seem to be talking about. You won't have to think anymore. AI will do it for you. It's like, well, is that a good thing? Though there's a quote from Jurassic Park. That keeps coming up to my, and it's ages ago. The movie. Your scientists were so busy wondering if they could, they didn't stop to think if they should. And it
Wow.
was like that's the kind of idea that always makes me look at anything with AI through with a bit of skepticism. Okay, it sounds great. What really is the impact of this? It's not just short-term productivity. What are you giving up in the long term? Of course, the positive benefit is that, there are positive benefits that people are able to communicate more easily. People that could not express themselves can now express themselves. You see LLMs doing great things for people with, dyslexia or other types of learning disabilities or other things that prevent them from expressing their ideas or just struggling to express what they're really thinking and feeling, goes a long way. And people, Neuralink implants, people being able to communicate that they couldn't, that they were paralyzed, or they were not able to communicate at all with the outside world, and suddenly they can. So there's a lot of really amazing things that can be done. I think there is a line there between there's a fine line between them, and sometimes it depends on what the LinkedIn algorithm is showing you for the day. You don't know which side we're going to end up on. It's like or total destruction or total utopia. It doesn't seem to be any kind of middle ground. I think eventually, though, it's going to settle into something a bit more, because we're in the middle of the AI hype cycle. I think it's going to settle into a bit more of a mood once the hype kind of calms down a
Right.
bit. If people are assessing these machines with a more weighted approach and not just excitement driving their investigations, I think it'll become another tool in our belts. Really, there's a lot of great things they can do, but it's still not a replacement for a human. And companies that went all in on AI a year or two ago are actually starting to backtrack now. And I think that's the biggest sign that it's a help, but it's not a replacement.
No, I love the fact it's another tool in ours with us. Like that. I love that idea. Seeing it as a tool helps you start thinking what the tool could be used in a negative sense as well and the positive sense as well, and you can then choose to which direction you want to do the most development. So love the
Exactly.
idea. Hey, Eden, thanks a lot for being on the podcast, being with us on Mind Your Conversions. I really loved our chat. I really loved the whole idea about how important copy is and like the whole concept around word engineer. I'm gonna use it and steal it from you as much as possible. Thanks again for joining in.
That's all right. Thank you so much for having me. It's been great speaking with you.